Hey everybody. So for today's movie review, I'm going to talk about a film that is pretty recent, but it's not brand new either. Um, it's the Clint Eastwood film J. Edgar. It is a film that is a biopic of J. Edgar Hoover's life. This film focuses on before he was leader of the FBI, during the FBI, and after the FBI. Um, This film, I can see why people didn't like it as much as some of Clint's previous films, like Gran Torino and Invictus were pretty big. Um, I did like this film more than Hereafter, um, but I wouldn't rank it with Gran Torino. I didn't think it was that good, but it was a lot better than Hereafter. It was a lot better than in Invictus, also, at least in my opinion, it was. But J. Edgar, guys, it is a film about an FBI agent, the very first FBI director, I should say, ever. He came up with the idea of having people's fingerprints on, um, filing machines. So if we ever had to track down that person, we would have it on file somewhere. He was very big. I mean, he did a lot of FBI stuff that they probably still use to this day. Um, J. Edgar was a closeted homosexual. Sexual, for those who did not know that, they do briefly. This is one thing I do like about this film. They show kind of that aspect of J. Edgar's life, but they don't go too extreme with it. Um, I'm not going to try to reveal too much of the film, but just to give you an example, there's a scene in the film where J. Edgar and his business partner from the FBI, um, they're in like these bathrobes in a hotel room, and you're really thinking it's gonna turn out pretty explicit, pretty pretty graphic in the sense of um, two naked guys on camera kind of a deal. It doesn't go too extreme, surprisingly enough. Um, it is a film where I think it is rated R, so I think it's they can't allow the kids in obviously, but um, I wouldn't say it's I don't even think there was any nudity in this at all. But there are some scenes that are kind of dirty minded if you kind of really think your way through it in some ways. Um, but anyway, the political side of the film was very good. All this, almost anything we have written down in history are recorded on film as far as J. Edgar talking about a certain situation with the FBI. Clint tries to portray that in the movie rather than having actual film footage of Clint of J. Edgar on camera. We see Leo DiCaprio's J. Edgar on the screen. So Clint did film those in advance and really got the impression that we were watching something that J. Edgar Hoover actually did film at one point. Um, but where J. Edgar kind of gets iffy for me is the fact that this film has a very hard time focusing on what exactly is the J. Edgar movie going to be about. It does cover quite a few things about J. Edgar Hoover, but it doesn't quite decide which aspect it wants to focus on the most. And that is where people could say, they really wanted to cover a lot of aspects of his life, or somebody could say, well, they should have focused on that one certain thing and just gone with it. And that's where the film for me gets very iffy because it seems to be not sure, it's not quite sure which side it wants to be on. And I think that's where the film really gets bumpy. Um, because it focuses on his political life, his relationship with his business partner. Um, it focuses on because J. Edgar Hoover was also well known for dressing up in women's clothing, kind of that aspect. Why his kind of his thinking behind that. Um, Kind of when he was a teenager, how he came up with all these things to eventually be used for the FBI, like leaving evidence at the crime untouched. That was definitely a J. Edgar Hoover ism for the FBI. The whole fact of when you touch it, it's contaminated. It's no longer a evidence for a crime. It's contaminated. We can't use it anymore because it is contaminated, and we can't prove to a courtroom that this person touched this certain item now because you guys have touched it now. So stuff like that. Um, but anyway, guys, to kind of get back on topic here, J. Edgar is a good film. It's not one of Clint's better films. Um, But like I said, it is better than Hereafter, and in my personal opinion, it is better than Invictus as well. Um, as far as biopics go, I would say this film is not as good as Dragon, the Bruce Lee story, or Chaplin, or what's another good biopic? American Splendor, for example. I wouldn't rank it up there with those. I would say it is better than, well, I guess Invictus in ways of biopic, so it is better than that already. Um, it's better than. You guys are pretty good with biopics. It's better than the lower key ones, kind of the ones that people are like, wait, that was a biopic. It's better than those kind of movies. Um, I guess another flaw of the film. This is kind of something I should have gone into going into the movie. It is very it is very political. There are a lot of things where if you really don't know a lot about politics, you might not get some of the things that are covered. Um, Richard Nixon and the Watergate scandal that was covered near the end of the film. Kind of J. Edgar's role on that before his death. Um, J. Edgar, like this is pretty much almost his whole life, besides his childhood, where we see his teenager life, his middle-aged life, his older life, and his retired life, like right before he died. Yeah, we get to see almost a good majority of his life in this film. But J. Edgar, guys, it is good. I wouldn't say it's very good, but it's um, on a scale of 1 to 10. I'd say this is about a 7 out of 10. So I guess it's okay. Um, so J. Edgar, guys, it's okay. If you really want to see this film, go ahead and see it. It's not bad. Don't expect the next, Harry Potter in the Deathly Hallows Part Two. It's not that good, but it's worth checking out. If you're a huge Clint Eastwood fan like I am, it might be worth seeing in the theater before it's gone.